Good morning, everyone. So, as promised, I'll let you know that I'll provide a video instructions of your very first assignment. The policy analysis paper, it spans the entire semester. And so, one of the things that I am doing this semester is that I'm going to have a video as well as provide the instructions in class. We ran out of time doing the instructions in class because it's our very first lecture, so we're learning the flow. You all are very engaging, so I never think that that's a downside in terms of our lecture. But I'm also mindful that I need to provide you all instructions, right, for the very first assignment. And so for the policy analysis paper, the very first part of it is the outline as well as the annotated bibliography. And so right now, I'm going to share my screen and go over the instructions for that specific aspect of the assignment. So for the policy analysis, I already shared yesterday that it's an opportunity for you to explore current social welfare policy and its effect on communities and individuals. And that's going to be your target population. And so for the policy analysis, you're going to identify and address social problems, as well as how that social problem impacts your target population. You will utilize congress.gov to identify a social welfare policy that addresses the problem as it relates to your social issue and target population. And I use social problem and social issue kind of interchangeably, but it's meaning the same thing. You'll define the nature of the problem as it relates to multiple aspects of society. For example, education, the political atmosphere, health, as well as legal aspects of society. You will also summarize the policy and its purpose and identify key supporters, those who supported the policy and said, yes, we need to enact this policy, and those who opposed it, saying no, that this policy is not going to be beneficial to society at large. Then we will apply the 5 E's of policy analysis to formally analyze that policy. And then lastly, you're going to talk about implications for social work practice. Why does this matter? As well as you're going to do a personal reflection of how this policy analysis impacted you as a social work student, exploring the social issue and how it impacts the target population, and just conducting that analysis. What am I looking for as you are navigating, working on this policy analysis assignment? Each subset of the paper will be assessed for you to make sure that you have used the outline headings for each section, and that's why I stress in this first assignment, follow the template. It's the template that you are going to use throughout the semester. There will be no changes, right? The only changes are the ones in green where you are plugging in your social issue and your target population. We're going to use APA formatting 7th edition for the format of your paper, for your in-text citations, as well as your reference page. If you cite it in the text, it needs to be on the reference page. If it's on the reference page, it needs to be cited in the text. And I want you to demonstrate, number one, an attempt at APA citations. If you're saying, Professor Doja, I struggle with APA, I've only used MLA in the past, that's okay. Show an attempt, make an effort, and then also incorporate my comments and edits that I make on your paper as you move forward to the next assignment. Paragraphs. This is vitally important. In my class, paragraphs are 5 to 7 sentences. I do not want paragraphs that are only 1 to 2 sentences. What are you saying in those 1 to 2 sentences? If you only give me one sentence, what are you saying? That is not a paragraph that provides depth of understanding. For this class, 5 to 7 sentences. You will be deducted if you do not follow my instructions. The writing structure is important. Syntax, flow, as well as grammar is important. Take out time to utilize the Writing Center for support. If you have a draft that you want me to look over, if you want to meet one-on-one during our office hours or any other time that works for you, let me know so we can schedule out some time. I am toying around with the idea of offering maybe a Friday writing class. Maybe we'll talk, maybe I'll ask it in a discussion post to see if that's something that you all would be interested in. We get together and we just write. That's all it is. And then if you have questions, I am there as a resource for you to sit in and write. Because writing is a huge area in terms of communication for social workers. And it is in my heart to make sure that we are also not only developing strong social workers, but social workers that can communicate both in the written and verbal communication styles. I see students who struggle with writing, and it has been a conversation that I've been having with colleagues about how do we address this, right? And so that is really something I'm toying around with, maybe a Friday writing class, because there are no classes on Fridays. But I haven't solidified that yet, so I'll keep y'all posted. But this assignment is a minimum of 6 pages. And this is over the course of the semester. It does not include your title page and your reference page. 6 pages of content. Um, and you will have a minimum of 6 sources, and 3 of those sources are coming from peer-reviewed journal articles. When Miss Maddox comes, she talks to us about what is a peer-reviewed journal article. Again, you're expected to write in that APA 7th edition style. When I post the video, I'm also going to post a link to a student reference that I find to be very beneficial. As you look through these instructions, you are going to see the due dates for each section of the assignment. You're going to see the due dates on announcements. You're going to see the due dates on the assignments themselves. There are multiple areas where I am highlighting the due date for each section. For the outline and annotated bibliography, your very first part of this assignment, it is due on September the 20th, on September the 10th. What am I expecting? I'm looking for an outline. It's worth 20 points. Prior to building out your policy analysis paper, we need to have an outline to shape what is it that we're going to say. I have found this to be quite beneficial for students to start out. It's also beneficial for me as your professor to break down this assignment into parts so that I can catch some of the areas where students may not be as strong in, as well as provide some feedback and direction, right? The first couple of times I taught this class, the whole paper was due by the end of the semester. And as I read the assignments, I said, I could have caught that if this assignment was due earlier. So now this paper is one entire paper that is broken down into 4 separate parts. You have first the outline and annotated bibliography, and then you have part 1, part 2, and then parts 3 and 4. And I also am going to do separate videos for each part of the assignment so that you can go back and watch the video and make sure that you're on the right track and answering any of the prompts and addressing each of the prompts or headings, so to speak, in the separate parts, right? And so, for the outline, you need 3 pieces. You're going to need your social issue, you're going to need your target population, and you're going to need a policy. You're going to identify your policy through congress.gov. And so for the outline, you use the headers that I have provided for you. The outline is worth, let's before I run ahead, the outline is worth 20 points. 20 points are deducted for not submitting the outline. If you don't submit it, it's a 0, right? Papers that don't use the outline will not be graded. If you don't use the outline that's provided, you have paragraphs that are going all over, I'm not going to sift through your paper to see if you have identified all the aspects that need to be included in the policy analysis. Part of professionalism as a social worker is being able to follow instructions. And so this semester, if you don't follow the outline structure, I'm not going to grade the paper. This is why I stress the outline at the beginning of the semester. Your outline becomes your heading in writing your paper. And so if I ask you and I say, well, okay, did Crystal define the social issue? Right? Did she define the social problem? All I have to do is go to the heading that says definition of a social problem. Did I fill out information? Did I have a paragraph that identifies the definition of a social problem? Yes or no? Because it's under that heading. And so now as I move forward, you'll see what are the key pieces. That's for my example. Yours doesn't have a yellow, but this is for my example. So don't stress out about that. All of yours is in green. Every area that is in green, that is what you change. So for Social Security Act, that's their policy that they are using. That's the policy identified. Okay? Then we go into the social issue. You're going to identify what that social issue is in your target population. And so for me, for my example, mine is going to be, and I put mine in yellow so you can see. I've changed this that's in green, right? So, and you also see that I shifted the language in terms of some of you may have long titles, right? Mine is a little bit long. First generation college student, that's a mouthful. That's my target population. Disadvantages in college access. But for the example, it just said poverty in seniors, right? So sometimes you may have to change the language a little bit, but just make sure that it's a clear heading. That's the other thing. I'll provide feedback and say, hey, have you thought about this? Sometimes my word, I know it's not an academic word, but I'll say, ooh, that feels clunky, right? So how do we shape this so that the heading is clear to the reader? Because when the reader looks at my paper and they say so they see social issue, they're going to say disadvantages in college access for first generation college students. So they know that that's what I'm talking about in my paper. So I'm preparing them. They're going to think about education. They're going to think about college students and even disadvantages, right? That's what I'm building out. We're going to define a social problem. That's your definition. And you're going to talk about it, right? So expanding on it. Don't just provide the definition and move on. Write a paragraph of your critical, demonstrating your critical thinking about this definition. But you see how I changed disadvantages in college access for first generation college students. Um, the social problem is disadvantages in college access, right? My target population is first generation college students. And so as you go looking at these and my apologies, I jumped ahead. Higher Education Act of 1965. And so I'm making in yellow the changes that I am making for my paper, right? So I'm not doing the Social Security Act. My act is Higher Education Act of 1965. And so we see that's how I'm changing. So you would be doing the same things. So let's see another one. Description of senior adults experiencing poverty. I'm going to take my yellow. And what's going to happen? Now you paste it. And now for me, it is description of, and we're gonna, again, this is where we may have to fix some language. Description of the disadvantages in college access for first generation college students, right? So it may not be the exact thing as what the outline is, but you go in and change it so that it makes sense. Because let's read this out loud. Description of disadvantages in college access for first generation college students. Like reading it fast, it might flow well. But as an academic, I'm going to say the description of the disadvantages of in college. Now I can't read, right? Description of the disadvantages in college access for first generation college students, right? Excuse me. That flows better. So don't also get caught up in just cutting and paste. Take a moment and read it and make sure that it makes sense. And so you see how I'm just changing it out. History of, and I would go in and add my the. Okay, and that just makes your heading sounds more clean. Okay, so that is what I'm looking for. Excuse me. And then, okay, so that's part one. You're dropping in your your target population and your social issue, making sure that it sounds right. Now we're gonna go to part two. Social Security Act, that's not what I'm doing. So mine is, so you see where I changed it to higher education. Oh, my little thing jumped. So I'm replacing it with the policy that I'm using. That's all you're doing for the outline. Now pay careful attention at part five because you're going to include not only your act, but also your target population as well as your social issue. Okay, so we see now I've added, and I have to add that these to make sure that it's clear in the academic tone, right? So for number five, I've included, and this is five under part A, I've included my policy as well as my social issue and target population. All of that is included. And so don't just do like a mindless cut and paste. You have to pay attention, okay? This is all I'm looking for your outline. You're going to do the same thing for parts three and four. So pay attention to that. Um, then we move on to our annotated bibliography. Okay. And I caught this while I was looking over it. It's not proper APA formatting if you have the whole title capitalized and it's not proper. So I wanted to catch that. So, as we look at our annotated bibliography, first you see that your heading, your introduction is the article referenced in APA formatting. And so if I use this article in my paper, I can just take this as because it's APA formatted, I can take this and put it on my reference page, okay? So make sure, and this is just another opportunity for you to practice that APA formatting for your reference page. And so if you're saying, Dr. Doja, I struggle with it a little bit, go ahead. We're going to work through the processes, but I'll provide you feedback. And it's the feedback that you incorporate into the other aspects of your paper. That's what I'm looking at that because I do take out time to read your papers as well as provide extensive feedback on the areas that I see concern in. So take that feedback. It's not just for this class, it helps you in other classes as well. And so from there, you have your article. It's in APA format. You say, hey, this is a great article that I've read. I think I want to use it for my policy analysis paper. So you're adding it to your annotated bibliography. And so what you're going to do is two things in your summary. You're going to summarize the article, and you're also going to you're going to provide a couple of sentences on how this article might be beneficial to you in writing your paper. So I don't just want a summary. I also want you to tell me, how could you see yourself using this in your paper? I wanted to make sure I'm still recording. So this is for your annotated bibliography, and it's about 100 to 200 words. If you go over, that's fine. I just want you to make sure that you are meeting that expectation of summarize. Now, I don't need a full blown 2, 3 paragraphs about the summary. It just hit the high points and why would it be beneficial to your paper. Again, I don't need a paper submission for this very first part. It's an outline and it's an annotated bibliography where you're just doing a summary and why you would use it in your paper. Okay. It should be no more than 2 pages. In terms of, no, this is 3 pages. My apologies. 3 pages total, maybe 4, depending on how much you write for your annotated bibs. I got a little space right there. My formatting shifted a little bit. No more than about 4 pages, roughly, depending on what your spacing looks like for your outline. Your outline is 2 pages, okay? And I see, it formats a little bit weird sometimes when I start typing in. So, but I'm just saying all that to say that I don't want something extensive for your first assignment. It's just the outline that you're working on, as well as just identifying, is there something in the current state of literature that's going to help you build out your paper, as you think about the policy analysis? Okay, that's the biggest thing that we're looking at. Last thing that I'm going to cover before I let you all go is da 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 da. Let me share my screen again. Big piece is congress.gov. This is where you are going to find your policies, okay? So we have the Higher Education Act of 1965. That is my policy. And so what you do is you make sure that at the very top, left-hand side, if you're looking at your screen, it says all Congresses. Okay. Then you're going to type in some keywords. It's the same thing as if you're doing a library search. Sometimes you have to play around with the words. So I typed in Higher Education Act of 1965 because I know that it's a policy, right? That has been enacted. And so I see where it is. So I want to also, you can look at, as you look at the process, like this is the Higher Education Act of 1965. I can pop into it, but I want you to look at some things on the tracker because we're going to inevitably run up against some policy. You're like, oh my goodness, Professor, this one is amazing. But has it become law? Okay, that's the big thing. So we need to have this part highlighted. It became law. It can be introduced and it can sound amazing and it's going to be life-changing. But if it has not become law, then there's nothing that has been done with or under that law. We've just introduced it. It did not pass the House. It did not pass the Senate. And many policies also have to pass the president. Okay? How do we find the ones that have become law, Professor Dozier? Because when I type that in, that's over 30,000 results. So, am I going to look through all 30,000? I shall not. I shall not. Right? We don't have that type of time on our hands. So we go to status of legislation. Again, on your left-hand side, when you're looking at your screen, we are going to look at, and if you want, if you're deep into policy and you want to see what they have going on, you can look at things that have been introduced on your own time, right? You can look at what has failed one chamber, what has passed one chamber, what has passed both chambers, what's going on with resolving differences, what has gone to the president, what has been vetoed, all of that. We'll talk about that as we talk about policy development in this class. But our goal is to see what has become law. And that takes us to 549. Now I'm scared to click it because I hope it doesn't move mine because I want to be able to look at that specific one. But you click on it, says became law because now we see something that has been enacted. Let me verify that I'm a human. And this is new for Congress.gov. As new as last semester. Last semester, I wasn't having to go through all of this verification. As I have been playing in Congress.gov, I've noticed some delays, like it's saying search query timed out. And you see it just saying we couldn't find the page. So that's also a little bit concerning to me because, again, y'all just saw that I had the Higher Education Act of 1965. Um, so that has been a little bit concerning as I've played with Congress.gov over the past couple of weeks, because I don't know what that is. But the key piece is this. I don't have to fret because I know that I'm looking for the Higher Education Act of 1965. It came out of the 89th Congress in 1965 to 1966, and I see that it became law. Okay, so I'll click on it. Oh my goodness. This is where we get into the meat of it. This is the stressful part because this is an older policy. Um, some of you, depending on where your policy comes in or out at, you may see that a summary, because your summary would kind of give you an overview of what the policy is about. Bill summaries are not available on congress.gov prior to 1973, right? So, where am I going to find the summary? I could Google it. I know about the Higher Education Act of 1965. That's why it was easy for me to attach it to first generation college students. This is also another way that I say that we could ethically use AI, right? So I would type in, tell me about the Higher Education Act of 1965. And another reason why I say this is also useful. This is one way that we can talk about the ethical use of AI in our classroom is because you may be thinking about a policy that you've never heard about, and you're like, oh my goodness, they're saying a whole lot in the summary. And so AI resources are beneficial to give you an overall summary, right? And make it understandable to you. And so the Higher Education Act of 1965 expanded the federal government's role in supporting access and affordability of higher education. Remember, I talked about in my heading, my social issue was the disadvantages of college access to first generation college students, right? So now we're going to look at this policy that has expanded the government's role in supporting access and affordability, right? So now you're seeing the connections that are coming in. That sounds like what I need to focus on. This also helps you as you write out the summary. Now, here's the key piece. Here's the key piece. I don't want you to rely simply on this for your references, okay? Um, as you take it here, it gives you a foundation. It breaks down, right, key pieces of the Higher Education Act. Now, what could I go to? If I wanted to focus on, it even talks about higher education today. Maybe now I go in and you can go in even into the library, right? Because now I have an understanding that yes, the I just went into I gotta find my other. Now I know that I want to use the Higher Education Act of 1965. Okay. So now and this gets you in the use of understanding how we can use AI as a launch pad. We got to do all this. I know, y'all. You can use AI as a launch pad because it gives you that summary. That's one of the things that I have found beneficial in the policy class. When there are policies that students have me looking at, and I'm like, I'm not familiar with that policy. Let me drop that into Chat GPT and just get an overview of the summary and see if it fits or it aligns with what the student is saying. It helps to make the policy more understandable and things of that nature because it definitely is written in a foreign language, so to speak. And so now I'm able to find, different articles on the Higher Education Act. And I actually should put that in quotations. When you put in, and Miss Maddox will go over this, but when you put it in quotations, it'll look all of the words up together and not just individually. So now you can begin to look at these articles and explore the Higher Education Act. You may find information depending on which source that you use. You may find information on supporters or opponents and things of that nature. So use AI as a launch pad. So you saw, and I'm just going to go through my screens really quick. You saw how I started on congress.gov. They don't have a summary because it was enacted in 1965. And so that was well before 1973. And so I went to Chat GPT just to find an overview of what the policy did so that I can understand would it be beneficial for me in using it for my policy analysis. And then from there, I went to UNA's library, right, and typed in the act so that I can gain more information about it because I want to use reputable sources. Sometimes AI will hallucinate. I know that's not a hallucination because I've done research on the Higher Act of 1965. But now we go to more reputable sources that can be confirmed through our UNA library. Okay? So this is just an overview, part one of the assignment. Please do not hesitate to reach out if you have questions or concerns. Um, I will upload the video. I'm going to upload the APA resource as well. Go ahead and start playing around with congress.gov just to kind of see if you can find some policies that are attached to it. And the other thing that you can do with I use Chat GPT and I think Copilot. Um, but you can also use them to type in like provide me a federal law that connects to mental health or child welfare and see if they can provide you some policies as a starting point and then see if you can drop those into congress.gov. So there are many different ways that you can approach it and use AI in an ethical way, right, to start the search. I don't want AI to be the end all be all for you all, but it can be a launch pad to help support you in your research. Okay. So I look forward to seeing you all soon. This will be connected to an announcement. Again, reach out if you have questions or concerns. And if you have not had your topic approved by me, please make sure you get your topic approved. You cannot move forward with the next steps in the assignment until it has been approved, as well as we are going to make sure that I approve your policies as well. All right, y'all have a good day. Bye.